Good afternoon, Nanps members. Thanks to everyone who's taken the time out to join us this afternoon. My name is Blair Merrick, and I've been the Nanps treasurer since July of last year. So this is my second AGM, and I'm happy to be back. And as the treasurer, I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Jeffrey Milgram. If you've attended past AGMs, I'm sure his name's familiar to you. He's been the auditor for us for a number of years. He is going to walk us through the highlights of the financial statements for the year ended 31st, 2021. Once Jeffrey's finished, we'll take any questions you might have, and then we'll proceed to approve the financial statements and approve Jeffrey as auditor for the upcoming financial year. So with that, Jeffrey, if you want to take over.
Yep, not a problem. I appreciate it. Thanks very much, everybody. I do miss you dearly. I do miss the soiree at the local Edwards Garden, so I look forward to that return in the near future. Okay, if the financial statements are up on the screen, that's great. Why don't you go up to page 5 for me? That's the profit and loss operations. Just while that's being done, I'll just let you know, for those who are new to the organization, my name is Jeffrey Milgram. I run a small public accounting practice in central North Toronto. I deal almost primarily with not-for-profit audits in every facet possible, in every industry across the board. Nanps I've been with for probably a good dozen years now, and I appreciate the opportunity to service the organization and hopefully add a little bit of value to what they do and what your board presents to you on an annual basis. But I know that they are hard at work all year round. One more page, please. I always kind of, my roadmap, one more, perfect. Okay, so basically what you're looking at on your screen is the financial statements for the year. I'm going to kind of just run through them in general first, and then I'll point out one or two small highlights. If there's any questions, I'll field those at the end. I am, of course, available all during the year. If there's specific questions or concerns, you can always put that through Blair or a member of the board, and they can contact me directly. Okay, excellent. Total budget for the year. Okay, so you're looking at just under $100,000, 82 grand, which is up significantly over last year, because remember, we're looking at historical statements. So right now we're looking at December 2021. So we're almost 1 year behind at this point in time. So you're looking at a little bit of historical information. 2020 is the comparative numbers. We're right into the throes and the depths of the pandemic. So you can see that the numbers are substantially less than that year for two reasons. One is going to be your plant sales are always going to be or down or pretty much just, drop and go for that year, and a little bit more lively in 2021 as we're starting to come out of the pandemic. I'm anticipating, more robust numbers for 2022 as the health restrictions are relaxed and we can start getting back into person-to-person events. 2020's revenues were only about 25 grand. This year we're at 82,000. As you'll notice, as I'll point out, the one anomaly in there is a grant from Trillium. That is specifically for marketing and database improvements, which you'll see in about 2 seconds when I hit the expenses. All right. But other than that, your donations are relatively consistent. Top line, about $11,000 per year. Membership has grown slightly. Last year, $12,000. This year, $15,000. And interest in fundraising and other investment income, $3,000 last year, $1,500 this year. You can see the sales number coming back this year for the first time in 2021. Obviously, there was just a little bit of seed sales and so on back in 2020. Really, the events had been canceled, unfortunately. This year, we were able to get off, within limitation. Remember, this is 2021, so we were able to get off. I believe that was kind of like pre-order and pickup. So that amounted up to about $11,000. Cost of sales on that about 50% of it. So that yielded $5,000 to the bottom line. And then you had your Trillium grant at $49,000, giving you your total revenue of $82,000. If you look at the bottom part of that page, okay, your expenditures, really most of the stuff is pretty much the same. The printing and mailing of the brochure and the newsletter is pretty much the same. My fees and any ancillary fees were pretty much the same, actually a little bit lower this year. congruent with the amount of work and a reduced activity. Insurance, well, that pretty much goes the same whether the place is operating or not. And the other part is the consulting fees. That 26,735 of consulting fees is directly funded by the grant. So it really doesn't come out of operations. It was funded out of the grant. You know, we're looking at like $12,500 for marketing project. We're looking at improvements to the database, another 8,000. So even though these expenditures are not in the normal course of operations, a little unusual, they were fully funded by a grant specifically for that purpose. So they didn't come out of general operations and the plant sales and so on. If you want to go back up to the balance sheet, which is page 3, that's perfect right there. All right, so that is kind of like a snapshot of where you were and the finances at December 31st, 2021, $124,000 in the bank. Investments at 24,000, that pretty much status quo from year to year, just being rolled over. No changes to the real property, the 2 parcels of land. 75,000 is the cost, not the fair market value. Actually, it's about the fair market value of the land, but at the same time, it's really kind of changes with the market. But that's historically what they are, what we got them for when they were first contributed. Accounts payable, that's primarily yours truly, and a few little bills at the end of the year. And the memberships, of course, membership opens up before the end of December for the 2022 fiscal year. And those memberships are 18,161 as at December. Anybody joining in 2022 for 2022 will, of course, be reflected in next year's money. But if you notice, last year's prepayments were 13,000, this year's 18,000. So you can see a marked increase of a good percentage, not dollar value, another $5,000, but as a percentage, substantially more members joining the organization. So it's going to be a little bit robust number in 2022 over 2021. Okay. Nothing else really of spectacular interest at that point in time, but those are the main movements. Bottom line, surplus, 217,000. That's your buffer. If for some reason the organization were to decide to cease to operate for whatever reason, after paying its, using its assets to pay off its liabilities, refund any monies owing to members and so on, there'd still be a residual of $217,000, which would be passed on to another organization with similar interests to carry on the work of Nanps, if that was the case. But that's your buffer, all right? So in lean years, another pandemic, hopefully not, that would be the kind of money you would fall back on to keep the operations going to the best of the ability. I'm willing to, if there's any specific questions, I think I've covered everything pretty clearly, but if there's any specific questions, I'm more than happy to field them. You could have to unmute yourself, of course, but okay, Blair, it doesn't appear there'd be any questions, so I'll leave it back to you to pass any motions that are pursuant to the financials and the auditors, okay?
Thanks very much, Jeffrey. That was great. You know, it's only my second year. I've yet to have a question about the financial statements, but I'm hopeful maybe next year will be the year that we get one.
Oh, you know what? It is rare. We covered off pretty good. You know, most of the people are pretty much in tune, and they just want to make sure that the place is solvent, and that they're getting you're progressing with the plant sales, and the board is putting forth the effort to, you know, keep the place going and move the mission forward, really.
Yep, no, agreed. Thanks again very much. So I've got a couple of motions to present to the board then, and the first motion will be to approve the financial statements. And again, those are the financial statements that Jeffrey just walked us through. So again, please react by raising your hand in approval.
And I continue to see no questions for you in the chat, Blair.
All right.
Not this year.
All right, I think we can conclude that the financial statements have been approved. And The next order of business is the hiring the recommendation to retain the services of Jeffrey Milgram as auditor for the upcoming year. And actually, I don't know, do I need a seconder on this or straight to the vote?
Straight to the vote.
All right. Again, motion to retain the services of Jeffrey Milgram for the upcoming financial year.
You need a seconder for that?
Doesn't sound like it.
So appreciate it, John.
All right, and it looks like we've got approval on that motion as well.
Thank you to everybody. I greatly appreciate your vote of confidence.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's always great to see you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. And for those of you that still have your hand raised, you can go ahead and lower them. Thank you.
And so with both of those motions being passed, I will turn matters over to Alice Kong on the matter of board membership.
Hi, thank you, Blair. Yeah, it's my pleasure to talk a little bit about our board members, and I'll start with the board members that are stepping down. So Dilys Bowman has been on the board for 4 years, and even prior to that, she volunteered for a number of years at the plant sale and with the CDEX. And while she was on the board, she continued that, as well as being our recording secretary and attending many of our community events, especially the CD Saturdays. If you participated in our seed exchange and you notice that there's a little description of all the species on the packets, this was Dilys' initiative, and we thank her for that. Jason Bernardin was on the board for 5 years. He was on the land management committee, and there were several trips that were taken to Shining Tree Woods. Jason also managed our Zoom account. So not today, but many times he would be the person that would manage our events or our AGMs. Heather Cochetier was on the board for a number of months and unfortunately had to leave in June. Her interest was strategic planning and help with grant writing, and we appreciate her efforts in that respect. Atena Keshavarsian was on the board for 4 years, and her interest was in volunteer coordination. Unfortunately, there wasn't much to do in the last year, but hopefully that will pick up and we will find someone to take that on. So those are the 4 board members that are stepping down, and I'll also mention the board members that are continuing. Natasha, you've met, she did the welcome. Natasha has also been interested in strategic planning and fundraising. You've also met Blair, who introduced Jeffrey, and he's our treasurer currently. Janice has been on the board for 12 years, and you will meet her a little bit later. She'll be leading the discussions. Janice has done a variety of things on the board in her many years. She's been treasurer for a while. She's actually gave a webinar about 1.5 years ago. She's put together the AGM and awards and headed those committees. And she's currently acting recording secretary. So she's done a lot of things for us. Lynn is in her 1st year, and she will continue. She's helped the recording secretary this year, also interested in strategic planning. And you will meet Lynn after I'm finished. She will lead the year in review. Now I would like to talk a little bit about our potential new board members. And you may already know John Foster. He's been a long time Nanps member. John is a teacher. He studied at Lakehead University, also a botanist and a wonderful photographer. John has experience on a couple of other boards in the past: Tallgrass, Ontario, Durham Region Field Naturalist, and Ontario Invasive Plant Council. John, I'm wondering if you could unmute yourself and just say hello so that we can see you for a moment.
Yeah, I'm already up on the screen, so hello
Okay.
to everybody. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And we look forward to meeting you at the next meeting. Yeah. The second new board member is Adam Centurion. And if you've had a look into our garden video contest, Adam is the one who is organizing that this year as well as last year. Adam studied at Fleming College and also at Trent University. His interest is restoration ecology. He's also worked at Sassafras Farm for a number of years, which is a native plant nursery. And currently he is at the TRCA. So Adam, maybe you could say hello. I know we'll see you later as well. Oh, I don't. You will see Adam later when we do the video contest. And the third new board member is Katie McDonald. And when she wrote in to express interest, she said, I have a strong environmental background, but even better than that, she said, I'm a native plant enthusiast, and we like to hear that. Katie has studied at the School of Geography and Environmental Science at York University. She's had environmental related jobs after graduation, including several years in South Peruvian Amazon region, working on water quality and waste management. She's currently a legal assistant, and her interest to help Nanps is administration and with events. So Katie, could you say hello so we can see you?
Good afternoon, Nanps. Nice to meet everybody.
Hi, thanks so much.
I'd also like to say hello. I think I cut out there.
Okay, yeah, hi, Adam. Really looking forward to meet the new board members at the next meeting. And I just wanted to let everybody know that if you have an interest in the board, you know, the board provides the direction and make sure that we're spending our money wisely. You know, we put on events, we have the plant sale, we have CEDEX, we have many things you could get involved in. Just send us an email. We also love our volunteers. We have great volunteers, and currently we're starting up the CEDEX. So if you have any seeds to donate, we'd be happy to receive those. Now turn over, tell us a little bit about Nanps in the past year.
Thanks, Alice. Natasha, if you can put the slide on the screen as well. So it's been a great year at Nanps, and we'd like to highlight some of those events and updates this year for the membership.
Lynn, can I just, I'm so sorry, I forgot to take the vote.
Right.
So, maybe we can do that before we start the year in review. So I would like to move that we accept the new and returning board members to serve for the coming year for Nanps board. And you can just raise your hand. Okay. That's great. So I think that motion has passed. And we'll go back to Lynn. Thank you for voting.
Thanks, Alice. So yeah, so lots of great events and updates this year at NAMPS. So like Alice mentioned, CX starting again this year, but in the last year, there were 26 seed donors last fall and about 65 seed requests were filled. We also updated some seeds to 2 other groups for their events, which is great. You heard mentions of membership from Blair and our auditor, but NAMPS membership has remained steady over the past year and is currently at 718 members as of end of September 2022. This is fairly consistent with membership about a year ago, and 2 years ago we have grown from 562 to where we are now. We'd like to thank Rolf for his continuing time in keeping the membership database up to date. And also our editor of the Blazing Star, Irene Ferden, which is a issue that is released on a quarterly basis to everyone and as a benefit of membership. So if you're not a member yet, you can take a look at the back issues on our website as well. Speaking of communications, our e-newsletter currently reaches about 3,000 contacts. Ali Hayes continues to be our communications coordinator, and the e-news is sent out monthly as well. Ali also helps out with our social media and website updates, and we do have a number of social media sites that we continue to maintain, including Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. It was very exciting this year. We've had 2 in-person plant sales again. Our plant sales are the first in-person event since 2019, pre-COVID. The Toronto Botanical Garden event happened on Saturday, May 14th, with both online advance sales and floor sales. So you can see some pictures of the event on the screen here. We also had our other plant sale event at Christie Pitts Park at the annual Bike with Mike event on Sunday, May 29th. In addition to these 2 plant sales, we also had advance ordering for pickup at 2 locations outside of Toronto in Hamilton and Brantford. We also had 2 webinars in the last year. So our webinar for Canada's Wild Seeds, Growing Our Biological Gold with Melissa Spearing, which was on February 16th, 2022. And our other webinar, which is Collecting and Cultivation Native Plant Seeds with Paul Hayden, which was on Thursday, April 13th, 2022. Both videos are recorded and are on both our website and YouTube channel. If you missed them and would like to take a look, both great workshops and speaker series. We are also happy to say that we are starting back community events in person again. Although we did not attend many over the last 2 years because of COVID, we were able to attend the Toronto Botanical Garden Symposium by the Garden Club of Toronto last week, which is our first in-person community event since February 2022. We also sponsored One Youth for the 2022 Youth Summit hosted by Ontario Nature, and we've continued to do that over the last few years. So very exciting, lots of new things happening and picking up again after a lot of pauses and more online events as a result of COVID. And then the last thing we'd like to highlight is our fundraising. So you may remember the fundraising grants that were mentioned as part of our financial statements. So in September 2021, we received a grant from the McLean Foundation for $10,000. And in September 2022, we also received a grant from the TD Friends of the Environment for $15,000. These grants have allowed Nanps to create short videos on how to create a native pollinator garden, to help us host our 2022 webinars. And the TD grant will allow us to continue to host new webinars to build on the Continue Do-It-Yourself series. So with that, we'd also like to share today video number 2 in our series of how to build a native plant garden. It is about 3 minutes long, and thank you to the McLean Foundation and Donna Lang for making this video.
I'm Natasha Gonzalez. I'm a flora biologist with a local conservation authority. I just spend my days in the summer months doing natural botanical inventories of different habitat types. The work that I do is very rewarding because of the fact that I do feel like it has an impact to protect the biodiversity on the landscape. Native plants, they've co-evolved with our local flora and fauna. They're highly adapted to the local site conditions, the local ecology. So once they're established on the site, they're very low maintenance. They provide food and shelter, both summer and winter habitat for a lot of different species. They are fundamental essentially to the local ecology. To having them on your landscape is a simple, small little thing that you can do to help support your local wildlife, from birds, butterflies, pollinating insects. All of them will appreciate the fact that you've chosen to take that little space in your backyard and dedicate it to native plants. Site prep is everything when you're looking to start a garden. If you're wanting to begin one in the spring, then you want to prep your garden the fall before. And the first thing that you're going to do is to remove all the existing grass that's in the area, because that grass is competition. The easier thing that you can do is to solarize an area, and what that involves is basically just laying the area of existing grass, covering it with a layer of cardboard, and then on top of that cardboard you're going to put soil. On top of that soil you're going to put mulch, and the whole purpose of that is to kill the existing grass and other seeds that are present in the soil. Some things that you'd want to think about is overall concept. What is the aesthetic that you're looking to achieve? Is it going to be a simple design, or is it going to be a more involved, elaborate design? And then the next thing is to work with the space that you have. Determine the dimensions and to actually measure it out. A lot of people find it helpful to actually draw it out on a piece of paper. The main thing to do is to document fixed points in your garden, be it a driveway or a fence line or large existing trees, to really plot out those areas, and then you know the area that you have to work with in order to incorporate your plants within it. Now that you know the area that you're working with, then you can decide how many plants can fit into that space. We generally recommend about 5 to 7 native species. That was attractive not just to you, but also to the pollinator species in your area. The more diversity you have, you're likely to target a wider species of pollinating insects and butterflies and hummingbirds, just to name a few examples. We recommend locally sourced native plants from your local growers. You may try to grow your plants from seed. That's also a good option. When you're growing your garden, just embrace the change, embrace the beauty that is going to be coming in the form of your flowers, but also in the form of your pollinator friends, the bumblebees, the hummingbirds, the butterflies. It's all in all, it's a beautiful thing.
Thanks so much, Lynn, for that recap. That was great. Now we're going to move on to the next section of our discussion, which is going to be led by Harold and Janice. But before we move over to them, I just wanted to, the next section is going to really be geared towards the membership and getting some insights on what your opinions are in certain matters. We want some feedback regarding some upcoming decisions that need to be made around the Nanps properties, our position in advocacy, and the role that the membership wants Nanps to play in the advocacy arena. So throughout the next section, we'll be asking you a series of poll questions, and once the poll populates on the screen, please select from like one of the responses visible, and your responses are going to be polled and then used to see where the majority of the membership sits on a particular question. The results will largely be discussed together later in a targeted discussion led by Janice. We really do encourage everyone to participate so that your voices are heard, because that's really important to us. I can't highlight that enough. And with that being said, I'm going to activate the first poll question. One moment. And that should be coming up on your screens now. So we have 3 choices. Select the choice that is appropriate for you, and then press the submit button. And we'll see. And I'll give you guys like a half a minute or so to make your choices. And maybe like another 10 or 15 seconds, and then I will be closing the poll. Okay, closing the poll. And for this response, I'll share the responses on screen. So roughly 56% are somewhat familiar with our Nanps properties, and 28% know a lot. And this is news to a small portion, so that's great. That's a nice segue into the next video or presentation that's going to be provided to us by Harold. And with that, I turn it over to you, Harold. Thank you. And thank you for everyone who participated.
Thank you very much. Nanps has 2 properties, Shining Tree Woods, which is a Carolinian forest in Norfolk County, and Zinken Island Cove, which is an alvar in the Bruce Peninsula. Shining Tree Woods is located very close to Lake Erie. You can see it in the slide to the left. It's about 2.25 hour drive from Toronto. It's not easy to get to. It means you're taking almost 5 hours out of the day to get there and back from Toronto. Zinken Cove, it's even further away. That's 3.25 hours on average to get up there. And it's almost 7 hours of driving time to get up to Zinken Cove. That's just to drive there. Once you're there, you've got to walk for about 20 minutes to half an hour to get to the site because there isn't a direct road to it. Shining Tree Woods occupies 50 acres. 35.6 acres is provincially significant habitat of endangered species, and the remaining acreage is a provincially significant area of life science. This is based on I think on the assessment rules, and I think it's changed since then. There's more, the habitat is regenerating within this 13 acres of the provincially significant area of life science. It has a conservation easement covered by Ontario's conservation land, I can't read that, tax incentive program called CLTIP, which essentially reduces the taxes on the property to a nominal amount. The species at Shining Tree Woods consists of cucumber tree magnolia. It's the highest concentration of this endangered species, I think, in Canada. It's quite significant. Eastern flowering dogwood, American ginseng, broadbeach fern, and Acadian flycatcher are just some of the species in this area. And this is a picture of putty root orchid. Challenges with Shining Tree Woods. There are a lot of invasive plants, specifically garlic mustard. I think that's the most extensive invasive species there. And it was a removal attempt, I think, in 2009 or earlier. There's brush taking over open areas, which impedes light needed for regeneration of saplings. According to the Ontario government cucumber tree recovery strategy of 2010, quote, management for this species has shown that sensitive opening of the forest promotes regeneration. And these are the, this slide shows the air, oh, I'm getting back. Okay, now Zinken Island Cove, that's 12 acres purchased in 2003. Again, that has a conservation easement covered by the Ontario's conservation lands tax incentive. I think we pay several $100s in taxes. Don't know the exact amount, but it's low. So alvars are very rare. They're only found globally in a few places. In North America, 75% of them are in Ontario, and Zinken Island Cove is near Tobermory. That's one of them. Alvars are one of the most species-rich habitats in the world that support many rare native plant and animal species. So you can see that most of them are concentrated in Ontario. Now, challenges with Shining Tree Woods. Okay. The last removal was of garlic mustard was in 2009. That's not quite true. There was a subsequent one that took place in 2017. But the one in 2019 wasn't particularly successful. And oh, I think I've said this before. Maybe there's sorry, I got mixed up with the slides. Okay, so we're going to discuss the future of Shining Tree Woods and Zinken Island Cove. So I'll turn that over to Janice.
Yeah, I think we just need to get rid of the PowerPoint, Harold.
All right, let me just see if I can.
So in the meantime, as Harold is doing that, I'm just going to introduce myself. I'm Janice Kyle. I'm one of the directors. And I just want to thank Harold very much, as he is on the Land Management Committee, that he knows more about this than me or probably anybody else in this organization. And so we thank Harold for his expertise. So Harold is going to talk a little bit about the proposals or the ideas that we have for maybe being able to better manage Shining Tree Woods. I'll begin and just talk a little bit about Zinken Island Cove, because I have a particular dream for that property, and we've had this discussion on the board about potentially returning the land of Shining Tree Woods to Cape Croker First Nation, which, if any of you have been there, is on the Bruce Peninsula. It is just south of where Zinken Island Cove is. I've been there several times for ceremony and know one of the elders, and I think that it, as part of our reconciliation efforts as an organization, it would be wonderful if that land could be returned to Cape Croker. So that is something that we would like to kind of put forward as a discussion item for today. But I'm going to turn it over to Harold again before we open it up to a discussion among all of the members. I'm going to turn it over to Harold just to talk a little bit more about Shining Tree Woods and what possibilities are there for the future for that property.
Thank you, Janice. I think in you know, the one of the reasons for this discussion is to look at what is best for the properties that we have, for the conservation properties that we have. What's the best way of protecting them? And I think in view of the challenges that we face with invasive species and you know, increased fragmentation of natural areas in southern Ontario, managing these properties, I think is, although Nanps does certain things very well, I think that managing conservation properties is not one of the things that we do, you know, very well. And I think that there are organizations that could take care of Shining Tree Woods. One of them is the Long Point Land Trust. It's close by. The people who are on the board and the volunteers are in that area, in the Walsingham area, just north of Lake Erie. And they're better at, you know, they can fundraise. They have the skills to do this. This is all that they do, is acquire land for conservation, fundraise, and look after the properties. So I think Janice and I feel that that would be a very good option for Shining Tree Woods. And Nanps will be freer to focus on what it does best. So I'll turn that over to Janice, unless there are any questions.
Okay, so I think this is, thank you, Harold. So this will be the time that, as Natasha mentioned earlier, that if you want to join the discussion, just basically put your hand up or let us know in the chat if you're not able to use the reactions function to make a comment. And if possible, maybe people can be totally unmuted and people can just kind of join in. But either way, we would really like to hear from you. Any opinion is valid. It doesn't matter if you are for what we've talked about or adamantly opposed to it. This is the time for the membership to talk. This is not going to be the end of the discussion at all. This is just the mere beginning of it. We're going to keep everybody informed, you know, as we go along and as we kind of ask questions of the various bodies, and we are going to probably have other opportunities, you know, throughout the year. This process will probably take at least a year of consultation, so we will have more time during this year to have other sessions with members so we can talk more. So if you don't have a chance to speak this time, with the limited time we have in the AGM, don't worry. We want to hear your voice. We will hear your voice. So don't consider this to be the only option. So I'm just wondering if someone would like to have the courage to jump in.
Yes, Janice, we have two people who came up for, we have Fiona. I think Fiona came in first and then Dillis.
Absolutely. Great to meet you, Fiona. We've chatted in the chat. So go ahead.
Ani, Fiona Indigenous. My name's Fiona. I am not Indigenous, but my husband and my son are. They're band members at Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. The land that you're speaking about, the Shining tree site is on Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation territory and under the treaty territory. So I'm wondering, as part of reconciliation, if Mississaugas of the Credit can't be approached to do some type of partnership. Of course, I don't speak for them at all because I'm not a band member for them. But I just think that would really be a good partnership. Now, of course, you'd have to also look at the fact that it's also might include the Six Nations territory too. So you might, I'm not sure how that would work out politically or anything. So you'd have to be aware of that issue also going in, that there's two different nations. But I just think that that would be a really nice step. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Oops. Great suggestion. And who is the next person? Yes, go ahead.
Dillis was next.
Okay,
Thanks.
Dillis, go ahead.
I just wanted to ask Harold to expand a bit more about Long Point, because I mean I know that in principle I have thought that it'd be a good idea to have somebody like Long Point looking after the land, but I don't know personally. I don't know, you know, how much land are they already overlooking? Are they overseeing? Are they bigger than us? I mean, I know they're local, but I mean, could you know more about the organization?
I'm afraid there's not much that I can remember about them. I once looked into them probably about 5 or 6 years ago. I might add, I forgot to mention that in 2017, the Long Point Land Trust paid for I wouldn't call it removal, the control of invasives in the 13-acre portion of Shining Tree Woods. We didn't pay anything for it. So I thought that's important to know. I'm also, I'm also intrigued by Fiona's suggestion. And I don't mean to complicate things. I'm wondering if there's a way for Long Point Land Trust and the Six Nations and Mississaugas of the Credit, to be some collaboration in that regard. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. I haven't thought it out at all. But that's my comment. I'm sorry, I don't know more about the Long Point Land Trust. But I have dealt with some of the members of them, and incidentally, Jason Bernardin just joined the Long Point Land Trust. He lives in Simcoe, Ontario, so he's one of the people there. Another person, there is, I'm struggling to think of the names, Peter and Mary.
Mary Gartshaw.
Mary Gartshaw. Peter has a different last name. They live in the area as well. They live in Walsingham. They have a seed farm, and those are the people that I know that are involved in it. I mean, it's a very hands-on group.
Okay, I'm just going to interrupt, if that's okay, and I'm just want to make sure that we get to the people that have their hands up. So, Anne. Okay, so we're going to have Anne, and then I know that Susan has been asked to unmute, and we're going to have John. And then I just want to make a comment about the great comments that are coming up in the chat. So from Adam and McLeod and so and Dave. So let's go first to Anne.
Hi, I've just been a member for about 2 years, but I'm a member of a local group, and we have some land trusts as well. And I know how it gets harder and harder to steward them. Ours are being handled well right now, but our group is getting older too. So I fully support your guys looking at taking these lands and however doing it so that they can be stewarded by local groups, whether the idea of returning that one land to Cape Croker sounds great. And the land trust or the Long Point land trust, I've read some about. Obviously, it's important to see, are they even interested in taking on more property? But it is an issue with getting properties taken care of. And I think do it now before, you know, that you can't find anyone to go up there anymore and it becomes in disrepair. So I fully support it and thank you for thinking of this.
Okay, well, thank you, Anne, for your comments. And let's move next to Susan, and then we will go to John. Now, Susan has been asked to unmute. So Natasha, could we possibly unmute Susan with Chuck?
Yes.
I don't remember putting up my hand to ask a question, but I'm certainly in favor of the land, finding ways that these lands can be managed more easily and locally, because it seems to be a really long way for this group. And because we seem to be based mostly in Toronto, I may be wrong about that, but I really like the idea for pursuing that role. Thanks.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Susan. And John.
One thought, or three or four thoughts actually. It's an excellent decision to speak with the Long Point Basin Land Trust, because they've got a good reputation for managing their lands down there locally. If you want to know what a land trust is like, you can refer to the Six and Woods Land Trust in Whitby, and also the Northumberland Land Trust over by Rice Lake. You want to see how those land trusts are operated. I think a partnership between LPB, LT, and a local First Nation is a good idea. I'm not sure exactly how the First Nation would manage the invasive species in there, whether they have any experience doing it. I think talks between those two groups, because they're local, would be excellent. As for Zinkin Cove, you have two other options up there in Zinkin Cove besides the First Nation. You also have the Niagara Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy up there that you may wish to get in touch with. And you also have the Bruce Peninsula National Park, run by Parks Canada, which is another option. You might want to think about that. And as for management of invasive species in there, you might want to take a look at some of the resources that are in my group, Ontario Invasive Plant Council, for maybe some suggestions as to how to get rid of some of those. But in the long run, I think it's an excellent idea to divest yourselves of the two properties and give them to the local areas, and focus on what the group is excellent at, and that's good practice as far as your board goes and your directorships. So those are my comments.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, John. I'm just picking up on what you have said. I'm just kind of going into some of the messages that people have probably read in the chat, and I just want to respond to a few of them. One is around, this would be one of the questions, right? About whether Shining Tree Woods would specifically be sold, or whether it would just be a transfer of the land title, and how that would be done. And that is where we would definitely have to kind of, consult with various individuals, like a former director of Nanps, who's now the executive director of the Ontario Land Trust Alliance, and also, of course, someone that is in land trust law. But I think that the partnership that we are kind of alluding to between First Nations and also potentially a land trust would be something that you would have to work out all of those details and maybe create something new, right, that has not been done before. One of the other comments is about that Naps could still run interpreted visiting programs for the public. And we certainly, you know, would want, with whatever conservation agreement would be set up in whatever format, that we would want to ask for visiting rights to be able to hold excursions on the properties the same as we do now. So that definitely is something that we've already thought of, that we would, we don't want to completely, you know, kind of divest ourselves and not have anything to do with the properties at all. So I'm just wondering if there's any other comments, and I'm just kind of aware of the time. And as I say, we are going to continue this discussion. So we'd like everyone to kind of to stay posted to the website and to social media, because we will put forward various proposals and plans as more discussions go forward. But I'm just wondering if there's anyone right now who would like to add their voice to this discussion.
Yes.
Janice, Harold had his hands up.
Hey, Harold.
Two things. First of all, the Escarpment Biosphere Conservancy acquires land. They don't do, I don't know what the right word is. They don't manage the land, they just acquire it. So I think that Zinc and Cove is best, you know, we'd have to have discussions with the First Nations about managing the property. Maybe all that has to happen is that it's visited on an annual basis. I don't know, but that's something to discuss. And I forgot to mention that the Long Point Basin Land Trust has undertaken significant Phragmites control measures at Long Point. And I've seen, you know, I've seen presentations about this at the Ontario Invasive Plant Council. So I think they've got a very good record from what I've seen.
Excellent. So thank you, Harold. If there's no more comments at this point, we have a second poll that we would like to share with you to just give us kind of an idea of numbers kind of going forward with the process in the future. So here's the poll that Natasha has put up, and we're just wondering if people could, as you did before, to vote. Okay, so we're almost, I would say it's going to kind of continue to change, but I think that we can, sorry, Natasha?
We're probably at about 80% participation in response to this poll question, Janice.
Great.
And is this the poll that you would like to have results shared post, or?
Yeah, I think that would be a really good idea, that we put this, for example, you know, on our website and on social media, but it's very clear from the numbers, the way they stand right now, is that we will continue to post further information on the website, which is what we had planned, and that we will definitely have another members only online discussion. And as I say, we will probably send out notification about that, like through both the e-newsletter, making it sure that it's just for members, but that we'll also post it on the website, any information about the dates that you will know. And at that point, we will have probably various other individuals from maybe these other organizations and the First Nations that maybe will be able to come onto that discussion forum, so that we'll have more information. So thank you very much for voting. This gives us a clear idea going forward, and we will post these results for other members that could not make it to the AGM today. So once again, thank you so much for our first discussion, and thank you very much, Harold, and to the entire Land Management Committee for looking after the properties so very, very well in the past years, and for going forward with this process of finding out what's best for the land. So now we're going to move to another discussion period, another topic completely. And I'm just going to ask Natasha if she could bring up the slide for our section on advocacy. So in the last few years, there have been international headlines that you can see here about people and institutions ditching their lawns and their leaves for naturalized gardens. To name just a few, California homeowners being paid thousands of dollars to make the switch to save water with long wait lists of people that want to do just that. Trinity College in Dublin, Ireland, converting their lawn into a wildflower meadow with almost unanimous, I think it was 90% support from the public. The first story of several I have since sent to our wonderful communications coordinator, Ali Hayes, to post on our social media feeds. Decolonization of the lawn at the intersection of climate change and Indigenous rights, a topic Lorraine Johnson first addressed at one of our Nanps talks years before this Globe and Mail article. And finally, from Eindhoven in the Netherlands, municipal encouragement to leave your leaves, something that would make the great Toronto-based group Gasbusters very happy as they try to ban gas-powered leaf blowers. But in all this desire for change, there's just one tiny nagging problem: municipal bylaws. Nanps members have been on the forefront of this fight with court challenges for decades. Douglas Counter, Deb Dale, and Lorraine Johnson come to mind, but our organization has never had a formal advocacy strategy to take on the opposition from municipalities against naturalized gardens instead of lawn. It was the case of Beth and Craig Sinclair in Smiths Falls, Ontario this past year that spurred us into action. They wrote to the Nanps board asking for assistance in their fight against their town, and we had really nothing to offer them other than posting the CBC story on our social media feeds. They won, by the way. We need to do better to serve both member and non-member native plant enthusiasts. But how is the question? Should we have a formal strategy? And if so, what would it look like? Would it be regional or across Canada? Do we want to be a major voice on the issue in the media? How political do we get? Do we work with other environmental nonprofits to form some sort of coalition and unified voice on this issue? We will continue over the next year to hear from you. And as part of this process, Lorraine Johnson has already agreed to provide a webinar for us in the beginning of 2023. And stay tuned as we work out the date. But today your board is here to hear your first thoughts on the issue. So we'll begin with the poll, and then we'll do the results, and then we'll dive into the discussion.
I just want to say, guys, you're doing a great job at participating in these polls.
Yeah,
Your
it's
voices are
amazing.
really important to us. So thank you so much. I think we're good to close the poll in another 5 seconds. Okay.
Yeah, so once again, I totally want to substantiate what Natasha just said, that we really appreciate all of your responses to these polls. So thank you so much for participating. And it's very clear here that showcasing the cases on social media platforms is important, as well as providing a citizen's manual. And then the third thing is, of course, to make a public statement to the media to support the people involved is one of the possibilities that came in third. So thank you very, very much for that. And now we're going to move once again to our screen, our gallery view, so that we can see everyone and that you have a chance to participate. And we'll do the same as we did last time, that you can put your hand up, put comments in the chat. You can ask to unmute. And so, Anne, why don't we begin with you? This is Anne Golden, has asked to unmute.
Okay. Golden, okay.
Sorry, I was writing a different comment, so.
Okay, sorry.
I have 2 accounts open. I was trying to let you know I'm only voting on one because I'm having audio issues.
Okay.
So I really didn't have anything to say on that. But I support, I think you're a great organization to speak to this.
Okay.
So I'm
Can
really.
I ask you, Anne, just since we've got you, we're not going to have you as a guinea pig, but do you think that it would be more powerful if we connected with other organizations like Ontario Nature that has done something on this, let's say, you know, environmental defense, other organizations, or do you think that it would be better if we did this by ourselves as an organization?
I think it makes sense to contact other organizations, and actually they would have a better idea of whether our voice would be better as an addition to theirs or as part of theirs. You don't, on the other hand, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. A lot of this work probably has already been done and put together. So, you know, I think it makes sense to contact other organizations, but the bigger ones would let us know, should we just jump on with them or should we use our own voice as well?
Yeah, because I think in terms, I can just say that I've been paying attention to all of these stories and have been saving all of them over the last, you know, few years. And what seems to be a common trend is that when there are media reports, and either it's CBC or National Post or Globe and Mail, there's basically every Toronto Star, every media outlet has covered one or more of these stories. There's always comments from the people involved, as there should be, because they're the ones that are most integrally involved in the fight. But there's never any organization quoted that supports those individuals. So you don't hear of Ontario Nature making a public statement. You don't hear of, you know, any other group. So if we were to do that, that would be a first. And that's the question, whether that would be most appropriate, considering that we are an organization that has its central mission around native plants.
It could get difficult because you're North American and not just Ontario, or not just so. On the other hand, we're opening up ourselves to speak for someone in California. If we, you know, where do you start and where do you? Yeah, so that.
Very, very good point. And just to say, we've had that discussion about the name of our organization many times before. So I just want to say absolutely, but thank you very much for your comments. And we'll move to John. He has his hand raised. John.
Yeah, I think it would be good if you developed a policy with the group, how you would react to these situations, what advice that you would give, and how these people might move forward after they've been contacted by bylaw enforcement and stuff like that. It would give you a way of reacting to what these people want in the way of support. Also, it does not hurt to have a policy of your own, as well as consulting with other groups on what they're doing and what you might do in concert with them. That would be something that you could think about. It might be something in the way of the environmental network that's been set up by Ontario Nature. But it doesn't hurt to have your own policy. When people can come to you and you can give them advice on what they can do, and maybe some advice on things that they might not want to do, and also work in concert with other groups. So do both things at the same time would not hurt the group.
Good. John, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second because I know that you are now on the board, as am I. And so the question is, do you think that's the responsibility of the board alone to put together a policy? Or do you think that that policy should be developed in consort with the membership as a whole? Let's say a group of members that would like to come together to formulate that policy along with the board.
It sounds like this way that you're talking right now was developed within it, that you've been talking about this in committee. It kind of sounds like that. If not, then you might want to, or we might want to set up a committee to develop a policy and how we would react to these cases, and also how we might work in concert with other groups. I don't know how we would go about that yet. Would it be something that we would discuss within the board? And also, it would not hurt to get in touch with the membership to get their views, much as the same as you've been doing tonight with the ballots, which is a very successful way of getting other people's opinions. You may also wish to even have a presentation, maybe a webinar on this particular topic, or even a symposium. Might not hurt, where you could get membership to have input into what you are thinking of doing.
Yeah, well, just to say that we already pointed out that we are going to be having something at the beginning of 2023 with Lorraine Johnson, and with probably other individuals as well, to talk in greater depth about the issue. And as I say, we'll inform membership of when that's coming up, but possibly you can think maybe between January and February of 2023, just kind of as a an approximate time frame. So thank you very much, John. Good comments, and like to hear from other people.
We have one comment from Dave.
Hi, Dave.
In the chat.
Oh, in the chat. I haven't been paying attention to the chat.
I will verbally read what he said. So Dave states, might our strategy be advocating for native gardens and providing owners and local groups lobbying tools to proactively have bylaws updated to embrace native plant gardens?
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm just wondering, Dave, would you like to just comment, and I don't know whether you're comfortable doing this verbally or in the chat, for how you can envisage those lobbying tools to look? Can you give like a concrete example of what you would put under lobbying tools?
Okay, so I'm Dave, Dave's my husband.
Okay.
And the lobbying tools would be giving the politicians the arguments they need to justify changing bylaws. So this would include the environmental benefits, the benefits to, which is a very big topic, but on a more local thing, this reduces water consumption, which for much of Ontario happily isn't an issue, but can still be an issue in a dry season. And then also providing sample bylaws, Canadian, where some of the tools to make this happen have already been brought into place, so that the politicians then have boilerplate to work with and say, oh yeah, that makes sense, or that has a problem. So it's a tool. That would be the starting point. There are certainly some people who are there's a whole community of people in Toronto who are very active community development type people, advocacy type people. And I'm sure that there's counselors that we could go to who are on side with this kind of thing and pick their brains as to what that handbook might look like. And then that could get farmed out across the province.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a great idea. And in my research, I found that the city of Edmonton has done some really great proactive work around this question, exactly like what you're talking about. And so this was kind of part of my reasoning behind saying, should it be regional or should it be across Canada? Should we be using best practices from across the country? Because there are several out there that maybe are not duplicated in Toronto, but are happening, for example, on Vancouver Island, or happening in Edmonton. And so should we make this conversation wider than just, see, most of the cases that have been coming out in both the last 1 or 2 years have been all in Ontario. But when you look at what's happening across the country, there's some really great examples that have been set. And so that kind of brings me to that question about whether we should be expanding this to find out what's happening across the country and get more people involved than just the people in Ontario.
Comments in the chat are saying this should be a wider conversation, best practices across the country and beyond. And then we had Harold had his hands up and he had a comment as well, Janice.
I would post on the website legal cases that have successfully, and I only know of successful ones, have been successful in getting the city off the backs of the people growing native plant gardens. The other thing is to also post articles where municipalities have challenged people growing native plant gardens. And there's one more thing here. Yes, an example of one in particular is Nina Marie Lister's embarrassing of the city of Toronto. And I don't want to go into the whole case, but a bylaw officer was after her and insisted that she get an exemption permit. And she said, I'm not going to get an exemption permit. She invited John Tory to have tea with her. It was well publicized. And she, it really highlighted the stupidity of the city's law, and it contradicted all of the, city's environmental policies, biodiversity policy, pollinator policy. And here they go around policing native plant gardens, utterly stupid. Anyways, those are my suggestions.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for those, Harold. And that just, we definitely have been doing that, posting. I've been sending articles that I find about every single case to Allie. She's been posting them on our social media feeds. And we've gotten very good responses, actually the highest number of responses to any of the social media stories that we put on our feed. So that is something else that kind of really encouraged us to go forward on this, because the response from the public has been quite substantial. I just want to make one other point, and that is that David Donnelly, the environmental lawyer who has been handling a lot of these cases, and was also on the webinar with Nina Marie Lister and Lorraine Johnson that took place through Metropolitan Toronto University. I think it was about at least a year ago now. He's been actually looking for one case to showcase, to try to change municipal bylaws across the country. And that is a question about whether we would contact him and say that we would like to be, we'd like to be part of this kind of civic exercise. And exactly like what, Dave was talking about, of kind of putting certain lobbying tools or kind of, certain suggestions forward. So that's something else that we can continue to talk about. So, and Annie in the chat here was talking about that there are counties in the States that offer tax incentives for rain gardens. The same as California is offering now the $6,000 to change their lawn over to, kind of drought resistant plants. And there are just too many people that want to do this. So it's obviously something that would be really great to see whether we could put forward maybe a motion to various municipalities here in Ontario or in Canada to say, why should they not offer incentives as well, to households here? So I'm just wondering, we're just looking at the time and we're just about ready to move on to the video garden contest. I'm just wondering if anyone has any last minute comments that they would like to make. Just to say once again that you will have another opportunity when we have this webinar in 3 to 4 months time. But I'm just wondering if there's anyone that has anything that they really want to get off their chest right now around this topic. Okay, well, thank you very, very much for participating and for giving all of your input through the polls. That's very valuable information for us on the board. And so thank you once again, and I'm going to pass it over to Adam and Natasha.
Okay, thank you. So this is the 2022 Nanps Garden Video Contest. It's my second year sort of running it. So this year we did 2 categories, established gardens and novice gardens, as opposed to last year, I think it was institutional and individual. And for each category, there are 3 prizes. It's $150 for first prize, it's $75 for second prize, and it's $25 for third prize. And so the submissions are videos of people's native gardens around their properties. And there are some criterias for judging. And we're going to take a poll after the end of the montage. The criteria include ecological integrity. So does the contestant describe the integrity of their garden or the manner in which their garden contributes to it? Storytelling. Is there any sort of story involved with their submission? We want to see native plants. So as many different native plants as possible included. Wildlife certification, if the contestant has any sort of additional certifications that they've mentioned, and the inclusion of wildlife. So we would like to see those ecological relationships within the garden. We want to make a special thanks to Chung Loon for donating the prize money. I also would like to make apologies for the contest didn't go as well as I'd have liked it to this year. Changes in management and an inadequate poster created a lot of variance in the submissions, and it was difficult to run as smoothly. I also had some technical problems with my computer. So the montage this year, well, you'll see a watermark because I had to use open source software creating it at the last minute, and it also has some video formatting errors. In the future, we'll have the rules on the poster as opposed to having it on the website so that people who want to submit know exactly what we expect of them. And I want to apologize to anyone who submitted or any contestant who feels that things are not being done properly, because I'm acknowledging that. So that's all I have to say, and I think we can go to the montage and then we'll take a poll.
Thanks so much, Adam. And just as a follow-up to that, there are 6 qualifiable entries this year. 3 of which have been placed in the first category, novice, and 3 in the second category, experienced. And with that, I will go ahead and just share. It will just take a moment for it to come up on your screens.
Ani, welcome to Nimki Wemtigwagatigan. It means Thunder Forest Garden. It's named after our son Nimki. We are developing a Carolinian zone food forest that includes as much diversity as possible. We want our son to have food for life. Located on much of an old farm field, there is a small portion of mixed wood plains with lower lying seasonal flooding areas. We chose species based on the surrounding undisturbed Carolinian forests, by referencing VASCAN and other written resources, and by talking with elders in the community. We choose to use native plants to attract pollinators to our gardens.
There's a lot of animals.
Jefferson complex salamanders, turtles, and western chorus frogs are some of the interesting wildlife.
I like strawberries and turkey feathers.
I like the blueberries and the American black currants.
Hi, welcome to my first native garden. Come have a look. This garden was inspired by my late cat Zara, who was the greatest cat that ever lived. Zara liked to sit in this corner and hunt for mice, and in her memory we decided to plant an Ontario native plant garden. The garden consists of Canada anemone,
which blooms white in the spring. smooth blue aster, which blooms in the fall, a young serviceberry tree, a smooth rose bush, and of course purple coneflower, which is blooming right now. We planted this garden during the spring of 2021. We are located north of Huntsville in Zone 4. As a relatively new gardener, my motto is, if at first you don't succeed, try again. When I first began gardening, I didn't understand the importance of planting native, but I now know that I can increase biodiversity, not worry about watering as much because native plants adapt to the climate and require less watering, and I am providing food and shelter for many species that are becoming increasingly rare in the wild. Last but not least, native plants are naturally beautiful and a welcome addition to my garden. My intention is to expand Zara's garden to the rest of the hill. That's it. There you have it. Thank you for touring Zara's garden. Oh, hi.
Hi, my name is Matt and this is my garden. I started it about 6 years ago, adding more plants every year. I'm in the Great Lakes region of the US, and I try to only use plants native to my region. When I bought my home, the yard was mainly lawn. Now it's a thriving habitat and buffet for all sorts of bees, birds, and bugs. My garden philosophy is that I'm sharing this land with all the other life that lives here, and I try to keep my disturbances to the garden to a minimum. It's as much their home as it is my home. A garden memory from a few years ago is when some bluebirds showed up. It was the first time I had seen them in my yard. There were maybe 3 or 4 of them. They stuck around for maybe a day or two. It was great to see they had found my little yard. Thanks for taking this quick tour with me.
Dear native plants, as a child, I first loved you for your beauty, jewelweed, pearly everlasting, and wild prickly rose. Since then, I've also come to know and cherish beautiful scarlet bee balm, fleabane daisy, and prairie smoke. I love you now for the sustenance you give everyone that lives in or visits the garden. Moths and butterflies, bees, and wasps, birds, and rabbits, ants, and beetles, spiders, and flies. Toads and frogs and roly-polies. Your fruit, seeds, leaves, pollen, and nectar support so many in the garden. Some residents, in turn, become food for others. But it all starts with you, native plants.
Hello and welcome to our backyard. Over the last 2 years, we've added a number and diversity of native flowers with the hope of creating habitat for pollinators. Our yard is located in southwest Scarborough in the city of Toronto. The drawing is of our yard in 2019. The yard's about 1,500 square feet. The pear and red maple trees and the cedars are 15 to 20 years old, as is the lilac, cherry plum, and dogwood shrubs. A story begins in the spring of 2020 with decisions about what to remove and what native flowers to plant. The first space to change was a large patch of lilies that greeted people at the gate. These were replaced with cup plants, black-eyed Susan, and vervain. Under the maple tree was bishop's weed. This was painstakingly removed and replaced with pussy toes, Canada Nome, bee balm, and large-leaf asters. The Canada Anomie in particular is taken to this space. Under the pear tree was periwinkle and peonies and orange monk. We kept the peonies and orange monk. The periwinkle ground cover was removed, and we added the spring blooming flowers of blue flag iris, columbine, wild geranium, and ragwort. Along the back fence was a variegated dogwood. This was painstakingly removed or dug out, and in this spring we planted a serviceberry. In addition, in this space we've let the goldenrod take root, and it now grows in between the red dogwood and swamp cedars. The back of the yard also had a large patch of lilies. This was reduced in size, and then we added a few of my favorites. Cardinal flowers, blue flag iris, wild strawberry, and butterfly and swamp milkweed. The back corner of the yard was overrun with black-eyed Susan, which we removed and we planted in as replacement coneflowers, lobelia, and tickseed. The east side of the yard is in full sun almost all day. We kept the lilac and cherry plum bushes, but the almond bush, which was grafted onto an unknown tree, was removed.
Welcome to a balcony garden in Hamilton. That was just a metallic green sweat bee. I'm going to show you. Here's a metallic green sweat bee. Yeah, this is an anise hyssop that I got from a kind gentleman who I met through, I saw an article on the Hamilton Naturalist Club website, and he was giving away native plants, seedlings that they had made themselves or reared themselves. And yeah, happy to see that this anise hyssop, which I got last year in the fall, and I planted out here in a pot. I was tiny and it's now a big plant. Popped it in with brown-eyed Susan and a native geranium over here. It hasn't flowered yet. This is a giant yellow hyssop that I started from seed. Here we have cutleaf coneflower. It's a Rudbeckia laciniata. It's very tall and very popular with the bees. And I like to eat the leaves, but it tastes a little bit like celery. This is a serviceberry. smooth serviceberry, and there's an eastern white cedar. Here is the very popular bone set. That's flowering a very long time now. I think that's a common eastern bumblebee enjoying there. That's also receding from this spring. Here we have false sunflower, also receding from the spring. This is wild bergamot, didn't flower yet. These are swamp milkweeds. These ones have had problems. As you can see, they're discolored by spider mites. So the ones that I took outside to a community garden did a lot better, and also so did the one here that is in a different potting soil. So probably important to choose your potting soil to retain more moisture. This is a horseweed, just seeded itself, got very small flowers. It's now gone to seed. It's a native as well. And the smaller bees like that one. Here's a silver maple that I picked up when I was gardening at a friend's house. Here's a aster that isn't doing very well. It's got a lot of, what's it called? Mildew. So it does a lot better where there's more airflow. Here we don't have very much airflow. So I haven't found asters to be good for balance.
That brings us to the end of the video montage. So great job, everyone, in getting that message out there about native plants and utilizing them in the garden. I'm going to put up a series of polls, and hopefully you guys are paying attention to the order of the videos, but I've also gave them a little title to help refresh your memory as you're voting. So on one moment, you will see the first video contest voting poll launch. So the question 1 is for the beginners category, which was classified as videos 2, 5, and 6. And then question 2 pertains to your favorites in the experience category, video 1, 3, and 4. And based on the contest criteria, please start your voting now. Thank you. So the proportionate, the person with the highest percentage of favorites will be the first, and then in successive order, second and third. Unless there is a toss-up, then we'll go into a tiebreaker scenario poll. Give it a few more minutes. We have comments in the chat saying, so many great entries, so hard to choose. Very, very true. A lot of hard work went into producing these videos, and it showed. Give another 20 seconds for those of you who are still deciding who your favorites are, and then I'll close the poll. And for now, it looks like it will be pretty straightforward first, second, and third for the two categories. 2 seconds. Polls are closing. I will share the results on the screen. And for our beginners category, first place goes to video 5, adding pollinator habitat. So congratulations goes to, oh, I think I have my titles, to Mark Beckering. Second place goes to My First Native Garden, Lena. And third place goes to The Balcony Garden by Marika. Congratulations. For the experience category, first place goes to Fiona. Congratulations. Second place goes to Kimberly, Love Letter to Native Plants. And third place will go to Matt in 6-year-old garden. So congratulations to all our participants, which are all winners. Lovely when that works out. Appreciate you taking the time to put that together and showcase it for the membership. It was great to see all your hard work come to fruition. And congratulations. You will be the recipients of the prizes in the corresponding days and weeks. We'll be reaching out to you. Thank you so much. Big round of applause. See if I could do a reaction for that. There you go. And with that, that brings us to the end of our AGM this year. 5 minutes to spare. That's amazing. So I would just like to take the time to thank everybody for showing up today, taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today's meeting. It was really great to see the turnout and the high level of engagement. We really had some difficult questions to pose to the membership, and your feedback, your comments, they were amazing and so well received, and will help to inform how Nanps proceeds. And there, as Janice was stating earlier, there will be more to come as we get closer to making a final decision on those items on the agenda. So I really hope that you enjoyed being here as much as we enjoyed having you here. And we do anticipate another great year ahead. We have some exciting events on the horizons, some of which will include some wonderful webinar series that we have in plan for 2023. And I'm just going to go ahead and do one more final share of the screen so that you guys can save the dates for the first one that's coming up in January 2023 with Making Gorgeous Pollinator Gardens Using Native Plants with Clement Kent. So keep an eye out for that. As Janice alluded to, there's also going to be another webinar led by Lorraine Johnson. So we'll look forward to that once the date becomes available. In March, Colleen Cirillo is going to be doing native shrubs for your garden. And also just reiterating what Alice mentioned to earlier, the board is always looking for new members and new volunteers for the various committees. So if you feel like this is something that's up your alley and you would like to get more involved with, we highly encourage you to reach out to us and make your interest known. That would be amazing. Blair, I know you had a few things as well that you maybe want to jump in and speak to on Giving Tuesday. So feel free to take the mic.
Right. Thanks, Natasha.
You're welcome. Say thank you.
And yeah, I just put in the chat as well, if any of you have any thoughts about any of the discussions today and want to give it some more consideration, reach out to us at namps@namps.org. We monitor the email regularly, and we're really interested in any feedback you have. This is a real opportunity for us to hear from you directly, but if you want to take some more time and think about it, please, we love hearing from you and getting your input and feedback. One other thing I wanted to share with you, and that is our main fundraiser for the fall, and that's Giving Tuesday. So Giving Tuesday is a global event that puts a spotlight on the importance of charities to society. It's a global thing, and we've participated in it for a few years now. So it's our chance to remind you about our mission and the opportunity to, for our supporters to support our mission financially or through sharing a willingness to volunteer, or both. Both is good too. Last year, Nanps had a nice response to our Giving Tuesday message, and we're hopeful that will repeat this year in 2022. So in November, you can look for some communication from us about Giving Tuesday. The official date for Giving Tuesday this year is November 29th, so we're about a month away. And with that, back to you, Natasha.
Thanks, Blair. If there's any, we have 1 minute to go. If there's anything that anybody wants to comment on, or if any of the other board members would like to share anything, the floor is yours. Again, I just want to say thanks for everyone. It was great. With that,
thanks everybody. It was nice seeing you all.
Oh, excellent. Yes, nice seeing you too, Mama.
You too. And I just want to say thank you, everyone, for participating in our discussion periods. I know that we don't usually do that, and so I just want to thank you for your participation, both verbally and in the chat. And we look forward to continuing that conversation with you. So thanks once again, and thanks so much for coming out to the AGM. And
yeah, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. The sun's shining, looks great.
I know. So get outside and enjoy it.
Yeah. Bye all.
Thanks, everyone.